Yeah, sorry to cut you off about that, but yeah, I don't know what
Okay, we are live.
to do.
Right.
I just knew I'd buy that thing for
$41,000 that was paying for something.
I just knew it. I just knew it was gonna come
For
down.
the engineer. But that is why they're applying for it.
Yeah. They want to. We're talking about RVs.
But I mean, I'd certainly ask that question. Don't know.
we're gonna. Yeah, we're gonna pass that. We're gonna pass this tonight too. Yeah. Because I saw the first.
That's my understanding.
We're gonna pass tonight too. I just saw first read and I didn't see
That
no
would be the way I would look at it.
So we're just gonna pass it.
Right.
And that's the way we did the church and everybody else.
Right.
So there's no reason to change it.
Okay.
But that's a question that can be asked.
I'm just kind of curious to see, where that was going.
Because we need to keep the precedent going.
Right.
If somebody's requesting something and they want it that bad.
But my understanding is
Oh,
So, hey, Ron, so that one, I wasn't at your meeting, so I'm assuming the one police car was, we were gonna get 10 for it, now we're gonna get 20, is that what it is? Because
Actually, 9,600, the trade-in was 9,600.
trade-in was 9,600 and then with the.
I think that's
Did it
one
just
we
get-
had to pay
did it just
15 or
get
16
totaled?
for. Yeah, we had it, it was out of repair for 3 days, and one of our officers was involved. Yeah, 3 days after we got him back.
No kidding.
$5,000 into it.
Oh, gee.
He slid, in a chase that he wasn't supposed to be doing.
Oh, my gosh.
And he totaled it, so he
Okay.
actually got more money, got double the money.
Okay,
Does too, and more also.
Participating, Wadsworth started it
Oh.
and came through North.
261, it goes through all three.
this is on Eastern. This is on Eastern. Where the water tower is on Eastern.
I didn't get. Thank you.
are we moving on Brick Hill?
thought he was first. Yeah, he's first.
Oh, okay, I see that. Dummy.
Looking at a computer.
Looking at a computer. I wanted to throw mine out the window.
Yeah, we still got a few minutes.
I thought this had to be done by February 28th. No, so that's an
Should I do this here, committee, if it's a amendment, or to wait till the ordinance gets read?
So we basically but then it's not necessary.
Okay, there's nothing, okay, there's nothing I have to do, wait till then, okay.
I think you wait till then.
I have no problem.
I knew you were probably.
I don't know about that.
Well, there's nothing here that's a problem, I don't think so. Whatever, that's, whatever you choose to do is fine.
Yeah, well, what you would do is you would move to add it to the agenda, right? When you're the president, you can do it any order you want to. So if you want to move at that point to introduction and adopt it, we can do that if you want to. You thinking so that you can get them out in and out? Yeah, I don't think there's a problem with that.
I now call the Norton City regular council meeting to order Monday, February 26, 2018. Time is 7:01. Would you please stand for Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silent prayer?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Carrie, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Gaynor?
Here.
Mr. McClone?
Here.
Mr. Courant?
Here.
Mr. Towsley?
Here.
Ms. Whipke?
Here.
Mr. Kernan?
Here.
Mr. Pelot?
Here. Committee of the Whole, reports from standing committees. Also, at this point in time, the first item is going to be the retirement of the K-9 officer, Bricks. And I'm going to ask that we actually move the resolution of appreciation. We can add it to we'll need a motion to add it to the agenda, but I'd like to move that up at the same time. That way we can take care of the ceremony for him and go ahead
good.
and get him on his way.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Mr. President. Chief Azar, if I read your letter you gave me February 14th. Okay, K-9 Officer Bricks completed his police training in 2011, was officially sworn in as Norton K-9 Officer on August 31st, 2011. Through the years, K-9 Bricks has proven himself as a valuable K-9 officer. He has also assisted numerous other agencies in Summit County as well. Bricks was immediately embraced by the Norton community and loved by all and will be missed. We wish him the best of his retirement. His last official day will be March 9th, 2018. Is there anyone else that wanted to say something about Bricks? Welcome to come up to the podium.
I'll speak for him since he can't.
Okay.
I'd just like to thank council and Mr. Mayor and Mr. Fowler and everybody for your support. Like I said, all of our everything that we have through the K-9 program is off of donations. So I'd really like to thank the city as well. The community as a whole has been great. The schools are always involved, always help out. So I really appreciate that. I'd like to thank Chief D'Alessandro, who's always shown a lot of support. He has treats for him every day, so that's how he gets paid. But he's been very supportive, so I appreciate that. And then, last, just my wife for supporting too, and my family. Like I say, it's hard enough being the wife of a police officer, but then asking to bring home an 85-pound dinosaur, it's a lot to deal with sometimes. So she's been real helpful. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Anyone else on the council have anything to say?
I would just like to say we appreciate everything that you have done for us, as well as Bricks, and he'll be missed. You'll bring him around to visit sometimes, right? Sure. You're going to be keeping him, right? Correct?
It's a big responsibility taking on a dog, and it becomes part of the family, and it's just like having another kid. They require as much, if not more, attention. So, yes, thank you.
Okay, with that, I'm going to move to put this on tonight's agenda. The the retirement of K-9 Officer Bricks. I'm going to move this, I'll be waiving the second and third readings also tonight, also with an emergency.
I'll second. Roll call, please.
Mr. McGlone,
Yes.
Mr. Pelot,
Yes.
Mr. Towesley.
Yes.
And then, if you want to go ahead and introduce it at this time.
Yep. I offer Resolution 16, 2018 for its first reading, and ask the clerk to read it, please.
A resolution of appreciation for the K-9 Officer Bricks for his service to the City of Norton Police Department and declaring an emergency.
I move to waive the second and third readings.
I'll second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McGlone,
Yes.
Mr. Pelot,
Yes.
Mr. Towesley,
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor,
Yes.
Ms. Whipke,
Yes.
Mr. Curran,
Yes.
Mr. Kernan.
I'm sorry. They sound alike. Did I jump on Mr. Grant? I'm sorry.
I said yes.
I knew I was going to do that eventually, Dan. I'm sorry.
I move to adopt Resolution 16, 2018.
I'll second. Roll call, please.
Mr. McGlone,
Yes.
Mr. Pelot,
Yes.
Mr. Towesley,
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor,
Yes.
Ms. Whipke,
Yes.
Mr. Curran,
Yes.
Mr. Kernan.
Yes.
And if you would, we have a special goodie bag for Bricks.
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 Hey, hang on a second there, Scott.
Yeah. Bring him out here so we can.
Bring. Dang, what happened to that guy who did this?
Officer, can you do that same pose this way? There he is. There we go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't forget your
Thank
bag.
you.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Chief. All right, moving on. Amend appropriations. We have a couple here. Ron, would you like to discuss these?
We have two appropriations. One has already been read in, I believe, once. That's ordinance 13, 2018. Ordinance 15 actually is, I've got to find the attachment. That's the one for $40,000, which I need both of these actually read and further readings waived so that I can handle these adjustments before the end of November. The one for ordinance 2018-15 is for the Huntington Energy lease that's coming due on March 1st.
Anybody have any questions on that one? Hearing none, then I will move to add ordinance 15, 2018 to tonight's agenda.
Am I on that one? I'll second that.
Motion and second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pelot,
Yes.
Mr. Kernan,
Yes.
Ms. Whipke.
Yes.
All right. And as Mr. Messner mentioned there, the other one's already, we've already given it a read, so it'll be later on in the meeting. The next item, C, Planning Commission appointment, Mr. Towesley. If you want to handle all these together and
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. It's that time of year for boards and commissions, and we've got, the mayor is going to appoint 4 new positions and reappoint 5. For the Planning Commission, his appointment is John Conklin. Parks and Cemetery Boards, it would be a reappointment of Ruth Stamek, a reappointment of Neva Gibson, an appointment of Brent Mason, and appointment of Denise Mullins. For Civil Service Commission, it would be a reappointment of Angela Beck. And for the BZA, it would be a reappointment for both Mr. Helmick and Mr. Welch. And then in the Tax Incentive Review Council, it would be an appointment of Mark Spizak. Did you want to add anything to that, Mr. Mayor?
No, thank you at this time. Like I said, I just wanted to get the names presented to you guys and then do with them what you so wish.
Okay, great.
Thank you, though.
I have spoken to Mr. Pelot before the meeting, and I'm going to move these for a first reading tonight with the intention of passing these next Monday at a special meeting following the work session, just so the names can get out to the public for a week's time.
So that is a motion.
So with that, I will make a motion to move resolutions number 17 through 25 to tonight's agenda with emergency language.
I'll second.
We have a motion, take your pick. We have a motion and a second.
Mr.
And just so everybody's aware, we'll go ahead and I'll call for a special council meeting next Monday night, immediately following our committee of the whole, and vote on all these individuals. And we'll discuss it during the committee next week. So, roll call, please.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Courant?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Towesley.
Thank you.
Communications from the public. Were there any?
No.
Consideration of minutes of the regular council meeting, January 22nd, 2018. Are there any corrections, additions, or alterations? Hearing none, those will be accepted as submitted. Minutes of the regular council meeting of February 12th, 2018. Any corrections, additions, or alterations? Hearing none, those will be accepted as submitted as well. Reports from officers, boards, and commissions, starting with the mayor.
Thank you. I'd like to first start off by saying thank you. Thank you to the city, the administration, council, and all the department heads for their condolences and keeping my family in their thoughts and prayers during the passing of my father earlier this month. But I'd just like to say thank you. And that's all I have right now, and I'll have a few more at the end of the meeting.
Mr. Messner?
Just to remind council, all of you should have received a communication from the auditor regarding your fraud questionnaires. They're due by March 9th. Please review and fill those out and email those back to Kaylin in that at your earliest convenience, if you would, please.
Already did it.
And for the what was your question?
Already did it.
Oh, and for the new council members, it's just standard. Every year that when they do the audit, they send that out to all the council members to fill out. So, anything else, Mr. Messner?
That's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Fowler?
Several weeks prior, we discussed the door hangers. So phase one, all the residents in phase one received a door hanger for those eligible for connection. Today, letters went out to all those properties, as well as to the addresses of those owners of the property that are not currently residing in that place of residence. So if it's a rental or a second home, we mailed one to the place of residence, as well as the location and the project. So as the project winds down, which I anticipate in the next few days to be completed, we'll start hanging door hangers on the rest of the residents that when they're ready to be connected. That way our residents know when they can go to Barberton and get their permit.
I would like to add, Mr. Fowler, that we did receive that email today, and it would help the city if when the people email us that they let us know the address where they're asking about so they can respond specifically.
I think you bring up a good point that if you don't tell us where you are, I can't tell you whether or not you're eligible to connect yet. And so if you help us by telling us your address, we can typically help find out when or if you're available at this time. That's all I had at this point.
Mr. Markey?
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
We have no public hearings. Introduction of new legislation, ordinance 15, 2018 is mine. So I'd like to offer ordinance 15, 2018 for its first reading and ask clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance to amend the appropriations for the current expenses of the City of Norton for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2018, and declaring an emergency.
And this is the one that Ron, Mr. Messner, just spoke to under Committee of the Whole, and we need to move on this as we have to have it ready to go by the February 28th. So at this time, I will move to waive the second and third readings on that.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Pilat?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Krant?
Yes.
Mr. Towsley?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr.
Go ahead.
I just want this to clarify, this is for Eastern Road?
This is 15. No, not
No.
Eastern.
This is for the energy lease. 15,
Oh,
2018.
okay. Thank you.
This time I move to adopt ordinance 15, 2018.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Pilat?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Krant?
Yes.
Mr. Towsley?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Next on the agenda is added resolution 17, 2018. Mr. Towsley.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I offer Resolution 17, 2018 for its first reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
A resolution confirming the appointment of John Conklin to a 3-year term as the Ward 4 representative on the City of Norton Planning Commission and declaring an emergency.
And that'll be a first reading only.
And this portion's better known as the Towsley half hour. So resolution 18, 2018, Mr. Towsley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will offer Resolution 18, 2018 for its first reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
A resolution confirming the appointment of Denise Mullins to a 3-year term as a representative on the Parks and Cemetery Board of the City of Norton and declaring an emergency.
And that's a first reading only.
Resolution 19, 2018, Mr. Towsley.
Thank you. I offer Resolution 19, 2018 for its first reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
A resolution confirming the appointment of Brent Mason to a 3-year term as a representative on the Parks and Cemetery Board of the City of Norton and declaring an emergency.
Again, first reading only.
Resolution 20, 2018, Mr. Towsley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer Resolution number 20, 2018 for its first reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
A resolution confirming the reappointment of Ruth Steinmack to a 3-year term as a representative on the Parks and Cemetery Board of the City of Norton and declaring an emergency.
And that's a first reading only.
Resolution 21, 2018, Mr. Towsley.
Thank you. I offer Resolution 21, 2018 for its first reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
A resolution confirming the reappointment of Neva Gibson to a 3-year term as a representative on the Parks and Cemetery Board of the City of Norton and declaring an emergency.
First reading only.
Resolution 22, 2018. Mr. Towesley.
Thank you. I offer Resolution 22, 2018 for its first reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
A resolution confirming the reappointment of Angela Beck to a new 6-year term as a representative on the Civil Service Commission of the City of Norton and declaring an emergency.
First reading only.
Resolution 23, 2018. Mr. Towesley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer Resolution 23, 2018 for its first reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
A resolution confirming the reappointment of Bill Helmick to a new 3-year term as the Ward 3 representative on the Board of Building and Zoning Appeals of the City of Norton and declaring an emergency.
First reading only.
Resolution 24, 2018. Mr. Towesley.
I offer Resolution 24, 2018 for its first reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
A resolution confirming the reappointment of Don Welch to a new 3-year term as the Ward 1 representative on the Board of Building and Zoning Appeals, Board of the City of Norton, and declaring an emergency.
First reading only.
Resolution 25, 2018. Mr. Towesley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer Resolution 25, 2018 for its first reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
A resolution confirming the appointment of Mark Spizak to a 3-year term to the City of Norton Tax Incentive Review Council and declaring an emergency.
First reading only.
And as we mentioned, these will all be on the committee work session next week, and then we will have a special meeting immediately following to act on them. And the reason for that is because the current terms are expiring, and we need to move forward with these. Introduction of prior legislation. Ordinance 3, 2018. Mr. Towesley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer Ordinance Number 3, 2018 for its third reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance to repeal Chapter 238 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Norton, Ohio.
At this time, I'd like to make a motion to adopt Ordinance 3, 2018.
Second.
I have a motion and second to adopt Ordinance 3, 2018. Any further discussion? This is just cleaning up some of the codified ordinances. This one here was outdated. Roll call, please.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Currant?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Pilat?
Yes. Ordinance number 4, 2018. Mr. Towesley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer Ordinance Number 4, 2018 for its third reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance to amend and restate Chapter 240 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Norton, Ohio.
At this time, I'd like to make a motion to adopt Ordinance Number 4, 2018.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Currant?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Pilat?
Yes. Next is Ordinance 5, 2018.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ordinance 5, 2018 is going to have a second reading, but before I do that, I need to make an amendment. I need to change the amount from $15,000 to $25,000 and declare an emergency due to the fact we were going to get a trade-in of $9,600, but the last week or two, that car 64 got in an accident and was totaled, and we received $20,424 from the insurance company. So that's the reason of the change. So I'd like to make a motion to make that change.
Before we do,
Yes.
Exhibit A, were we fine with that?
Yeah, because Exhibit A, it contemplates a trade-in, but, theoretically, we want it cleaned up, sure, but I think it's okay because we're not going to trade the car and we no longer have the vehicle. So the price of the vehicle itself is reflected on that exhibit, just recognizing that there's not going to be a trade-in with that price.
I'll second the motion to amend.
All right, we have a motion and second to amend Ordinance 5, 2018. Roll call, please.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Currant?
Yes.
Mr. Pilat?
Yes.
Okay, with that, I'd like to offer amended ordinance 5, 2018 for its second reading. Ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the purchase of a 2018 Dodge Charger police cruiser for the police department at a cost not to exceed $25,000.
I offer to amend ordinance.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
And declaring an emergency,
And
too.
declaring an emergency.
Okay, sorry. I offer amended ordinance 5, 2018. I'd like to waive the third reading.
Second.
Motion and second to waive the third reading on amended ordinance 5, 2018. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Corrant?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
I offer amended ordinance 5, 2018 to, for its third reading, and ask the clerk to read it, please.
You
Well,
just
we-
waived it. You can
And-
just
I'm sorry.
motion to approve.
Motion to approve it, I'm sorry.
I'll second that. And before we take the roll call, I just want to make it clear for everyone that it was originally set for an amount not to exceed $15,000 because we were going to have a trade-in that would have taken it approximately down to that amount. We have raised it to $25,000 only because we have to buy the vehicle and then receive reimbursement from the insurance company of $20,000. So we're actually spending less for the car, even though it looks like we're increasing the amount for the car. I just wanted to make that clear.
We're spending about $10,000 less.
Correct.
And the reason for the emergency is obviously, since it was in an accident, we want to get it back into the fleet right away. So this will allow the mayor to sign it, and it goes into effect right away rather than setting in 30 days.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I'd also like to point out before the meeting, talking with the chief, the officer involved was okay.
Yes.
Yes.
That's important.
Yep.
All right, we have a motion and second to adopt ordinance, amended ordinance 5, 2018. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Corrant?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr.
Ordinance
President.
6, 2018. Mr. McGlone.
I offer ordinance 6, 2018 for its second reading, and ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the purchase of a 2018 Dodge Charger police cruiser for the police department at a cost not to exceed $16,000.
Second reading only.
Ordinance 7, 2018 falls under myself. I'd like to offer ordinance 7, 2018 for its second reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the administrative officer to submit an application for a community development block grant to Summit County and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Second reading only. Ordinance 8, 2018, I'd like to offer that for its second reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the administrative officer to submit an application to the Ohio Department of Natural Resources for a Nature Works grant and declaring an emergency.
Next item, ordinance 9, 2018, I'd like to offer it for its second reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the administrative officer to submit an application to the Tuscarora Park Health and Wellness Foundation and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Next item, ordinance 10, 2018, second reading. Mr. Towesley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer ordinance 10, 2018 for its second reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance to amend Chapter 258 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Norton, Ohio.
And that's second reading only.
Next item is Resolution 11, 2018 for its second reading. Mr. Towesley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer resolution number 11, 2018 for its second reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
A resolution appointing Jack Gaynor as the Norton representative to the District Advisory Council of the Barberton-Norton Mosquito Abatement District and declaring an emergency.
At this time, I'd like to make a motion to waive the third reading on this.
Second that.
I have a motion and second to waive the third reading on Resolution 11, 2018. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Corrant?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Now I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 11, 2018.
Second?
And I'd like to thank Mr. Gaynor for volunteering to sit on the board this year. Appreciate it. We have a motion and second to adopt Resolution 2011, 2018. Roll call, please.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Corrant?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes. Next item, Ordinance 12, 2018 falls under myself. I'd like to offer Ordinance 12, 2018 for its second reading and ask clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the administrative officer to enter into an agreement with Software Solutions for an upgrade to the city's accounting system and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Second reading only. Ordinance 13, 2018, I'd like to offer that for its second reading and ask clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance to amend the appropriations for the current expenses of the City of Norton for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2018, and declaring an emergency.
And this is the other one that Ron alluded to earlier when he was speaking on the appropriations. And we have a deadline to have this done by February 28th as well, to have it submitted. So at this time, I'd like to move to waive the third reading on Ordinance 13, 2018.
I'll second.
Motion second to waive the third reading on Ordinance 13, 2018. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Corrant?
Yes.
This time I move to adopt Ordinance 13, 2018.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Corrant?
Yes.
Thank you. Next item is Resolution 14, 2018. Ms. Whipke.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer Resolution 14, 2018 for its second reading. Ask clerk to read it, please.
A resolution authorizing the submission of an application to the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency for financial assistance through the Water Supply Revolving Loan Account and committing to provide funding for the local share of the project and declaring an emergency.
This is just to look into being able to receive funding and perhaps get some grants to put a water line along Akron-Wadsworth Road running from Akron to Wadsworth, along with some other amenities. This does need to be filed by March 1st. This isn't binding us in any way. This is just making sure that we're getting the application out there to be able to get help if we move forward, and we can move forward. Anybody else? Okay. At this time, I motion to waive the third reading on Resolution 14, 2018.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Motion and second to waive the third reading on Resolution 14, 2018. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. Corrant?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
At this time, I motion to approve Resolution 14, 2018 with emergency language.
And I'll second.
Motion and second to approve Resolution 14, 2018. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. Corrant?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes. Any unfinished business?
I have a question for Mr. Fowler. I hadn't realized, now I do, that that house is torn down on Haynes Street.
Yes.
My question, though, was when we applied for that grant, did we get the grant, and are we still able to use it? Are we still able to use it for another project? Since the owner, you said, tore it down, right?
We did receive the grant. We would have to seek a modification, and we had discussed one of the modifications we might seek. But we had not made a formal decision. I believe we were going to have a discussion at some point in executive session to discuss our thought around that.
Okay, that's fine, thank you.
And Mr. Pilar, we could probably do that at the next regular council meeting in 2 weeks if you want to do that executive session
Okay.
at that time.
Carrie, would you schedule that at the beginning of the meeting? Or can we do it at the end? Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Should be a pretty quick update.
All right, we'll talk, and if there's something we need to act on, we'll have it at the beginning. If not,
Sure.
then we'll just move it to the end.
Sure.
Any other unfinished business? As I stated earlier, all the board's personnel will be having a special meeting immediately following the committee meeting next week to discuss them or approval. Any new business? Public service announcements. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. President. I have one. It is the CCA 2017 Taxpayer Assistant Dates. CCA staff auditors will be available to assist residents in preparing the 2017 city income tax filings. They will once again be located here at the Norton Community Center on Wednesday, March 7th. That's from 1 to 7 p.m. Wednesday, March 21st, from 1 to 7 p.m. Wednesday, April 4th, from 1 to 7 p.m., and again on Thursday, April 12th, from 1 to 7 p.m.
Mr. President, I might add, those are on our website as well,
Correct.
that memo.
Thank you. I'd like to remind people that the Nortonopoly boards are available for purchase. They can contact the city, or is that on the website?
I haven't seen anything on it.
All right, we'll get something up on the website with a phone number where you can pick those up. And that's a fundraiser kind of for the bicentennial. And then, Carrie, did you want to mention your?
The Easter basket collection, I think we sent out notifications to all the directors and department heads, and the Summit County Children's Services is collecting Easter baskets. There are flyers on the counter, and they identify which groups they've already filled. The one group they have a hard time filling for are the tween boys from 10 to 12 years old. So keep that in mind while you're shopping. And unfortunately, they got the information out late this year, so I have to tell you that the deadline is this Friday.
This Friday?
Yes.
And you'll take monetary donations as well?
I will take monetary donations, and I've done that for the police department. I'll do the shopping for them, and then take the baskets to the center on Friday or Saturday. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other public service announcements?
Mr. President?
Yes.
Yeah. Before this meeting, I had a donation for the syringe exchange program for Summit County Public Health by one of our residents, which I'd like to thank her for bringing that. Just a reminder that we have that program is an ongoing program to try to have counselors and those who are addicted to drugs meet, and it gives them an opportunity to develop a relationship and a rapport with someone who is addicted at Summit County Public Health at different locations. And it gives us an opportunity to have an impact on those who wish to come off drugs, get clean, and get into a program. So I appreciate the donation tonight. Thank you.
Any other public service announcements? Hearing none, our next council meeting will be next Monday. I don't know what the date is. 5th? March 5th will be the committee, and meeting adjourned 7:40.